Jagex is the company behind the development of RuneScape Dragon Wilds, and they just released the game in early access without telling anyone about it. It was mentioned that the game was going to be released sometime during spring 2025, but they shadow dropped it just today, and I have to say, I'm just confused and honestly a little bit disappointed. Now, I've only played for a couple of hours, so don't expect this to be a full review or anything like that. I just want to talk about what the point of this game is and where RuneScape Dragon Wilds fits in the survival genre. Because the developers at Jagex were asked what Dragon Wilds is doing to set itself apart from other survival games out there. And one of the things they mention is that it's fundamentally a RuneScape game.
The thing that makes us really stand out is, apart from the fact that it's a RuneScape game, fundamentally at its core.
But I don't entirely agree with that sentiment. You see, the things you will get to experience early on in the game are mostly familiar NPCs you would recognize from old school RuneScape, like Vanica the Slayer Master or the Wise Old Man who helps guide you through the main questline. There are a few quests you will recognize very easily, and also a few lore references too, where they mention some of the different gods like Saradomin. You will also encounter some familiar mobs from old school RuneScape, like the Abyssal Demon, and the typical low-level enemies like goblins, rats, and cows. You will even find common materials and equipment straight out of old school RuneScape, like bronze armor and so on. It does have the RuneScape theme, and I'm sure there's way more references to find if you stick with the game and play it longer. If you then take a look at how the game currently plays, like building a shelter with different options, or using materials to craft weapons and armor to help you fight enemies, a lot of that seems to work as intended, and overall I find it to be pretty good. I'm not saying that the game is bad by any means, but for the most part it's really hard to distinguish RuneScape Dragon Wilds from other survival games, because I would argue that it looks, feels and plays just like Valheim or Enshrouded. While the game is set in the RuneScape universe, and that theme can sometimes be recognized, in terms of the visuals, animations and art style, it looks way too similar to the other survival games. It doesn't have the unique charm you would find in a game like old school RuneScape. Instead, it feels like they've taken too much inspiration or even shamelessly ripped off elements from other games. Some people would even argue that it looks too similar to New World, especially when it comes to how the user interface is designed. The gameplay and combat experience is also very similar. I was really looking forward to seeing how the combat plays out and how it would feel to smash a goblin with a melee weapon. But it seems like the game uses the same kind of weapon animations and attack patterns, and it also has that clunky and unresponsive feel to it that you would experience in any other survival game out there. Initially, I thought it might function somewhat similar to New World, but I was wrong. I actually think New World has a much better action combat system. And then when you look at the gameplay loop and the game design, they are also incredibly similar to the other games. Whether it comes down to training your woodcutting skill and acquiring logs, or defending your shelter from goblins that are trying to destroy it, nothing here is really that different. I feel like it's a missed opportunity here to not include essential survival skills in your survival game that RuneScape is so famously known for, like fire making or fishing. It's also very odd that they chose not to include essential tools you would normally carry in your bag when performing certain skills, like fletching, where you create different types of ranged weapons and ammunition using a knife. Instead, what you do is pick up flax, craft a spinning wheel at your shelter using logs, and then make coarse thread, which automatically unlocks the blueprints to craft bows and arrows. And during this entire process, you don't even have to stand still or carry any tools. You can just run off and do something else in the meantime, then come back later and pick it all up. So there's nothing wrong with the current gameplay loop, but what I'm trying to say is that right now, fundamentally speaking, it doesn't seem to play like RuneScape. I would argue that it plays just like Valheim. The gameplay loop is very streamlined and follows the exact same formula as the other survival games. It seems to lack the core design and the more hardcore experience that a game like old school RuneScape is typically known for. If you are a fan of the survival genre and you really enjoy playing Valheim or Enshrouded, then yeah, I guess you could play with your friends and have a pretty good time overall. But I just find it disingenuous how this game is able to copy so many elements from other titles and sort of gets away with it just because RuneScape is attached to the name. I think it's shameless how they're able to look and play like Valheim without trying to innovate in the genre in any meaningful way. Now, they did introduce a magic skill system where you can cast spells to sort of allow you to play the game in different ways, like the ability to cast a spell to gather resources much faster. And while I do think there's potential for some interesting spells and combinations in the future with that system, right now that doesn't feel like a game changer. And by the way, I have to say this, But the game is currently bare bones, and I have yet to talk about that. There's so much missing content and stuff in the game that it makes you question how long it's actually been in development. For that reason alone, I usually never buy early access games or want to engage with them. I do understand that many gamers nowadays want to believe in companies that develop their games with community feedback in mind. But we're talking about a company here like Jagex that is worth millions if not billions of dollars that have done so many bad things to their customers in the past. And they couldn't even include basic features or quality of life improvements without charging you $30 for the product first. And I know you guys are probably thinking, who the hell is this guy just hating on my new favorite game? And trust me, it's not about that, okay? Fine, just a tiny little bit hate. Right? But I just find this game incredibly confusing because I'm not exactly sure which audience they're trying to appeal to. Maybe it's just me, but as someone who's played old school RuneScape pretty much my entire life, as well as many other survival games like Valheim, this doesn't seem right to me. If you do enjoy playing this game right now in early access, and you don't mind how it looks, feels, and plays like Enshrouded or Valheim, then I guess you could just spend $30 on the game right now and enjoy it. Like, I'm not gonna tell you to stop having fun, okay? But it just baffles me how we as gamers continue to normalize this exact practice, and I guess I hope you guys can at least understand where I'm coming from and why I'm just disappointed. That's really about it. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more similar content, then make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And thank you guys for watching the video.